And then if you're a reader, you can learn anything. You can learn science and math, and you can read beautiful books. And so why I'm passionate about teaching children how to read is to open up their world, to learn more and more and more. So reading is so important. So our agenda, Dorcas, is just very briefly and just go have goals. You can switch it. Can everybody see this okay? I'm going to be talking about the importance of it, and it's really beautiful in a classical education because the tried and true phonics of sounding out is classical. Not memorizing, but sounding out your words. I have goals for teachers. How many of you are teachers in this room? Teachers? Well, everybody's a teacher, really. Goals for the students. I'm going to be talking about our brain. It's amazing what's happening right here in our heads and how development happens in young children. And we're going to be talking about why reading has to happen very explicitly. Like there has to be a step 1 and a step 2 and a step 3. It builds and builds and builds. And then we're going to talk about phonological awareness. It is a key to reading success and the importance of a reading life. So part 1, we're going to get to about right here. So hopefully you come back tomorrow. Today's the why, tomorrow's the how. So I'm doing 2 sessions because I could talk to you for about 20 hours because I love it so much and I will go on and on and on. And for me, I'm happy if you have a question you ask, okay? So then the next slide is goals for teachers. I gave you an article. It says teaching reading is rocket science. Yes. We think building a rocket is difficult. Would you think building a rocket would be difficult? So is learning how to read. It doesn't happen naturally for everyone that just all of a sudden you're a reader. It's very rare that a student just all of a sudden is a reader. What has to happen is they have to learn, and they have to work hard to learn how to read it. So you're going to learn that. That article, I wanted you to have something to take back with you to read later. And it talks about this reading process in the brain and what's happening in our minds. And then we're going to learn this information, we're going to understand it. I really am going to teach you about phonological awareness and why rhyming and breaking words apart and putting words together helps you be a reader. It sounds really interesting, right? That you would just rhyme some words and then take a word like hot dog or baseball or football and break it apart, football, and put it together, football, is important to learning how to read. But you need that when you're 3, 4, and 5 years old. We're going to talk about a language-rich classroom. It's why talking with our children, giving them, what do children say often? What word? Do they ask? Why? Do they ask why a lot? God gave them that word because they want you to tell them. And when you're telling them the answer to why, they're building their mind with vocabulary. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about when we see someone struggling, how can we assess that? And then how can we help them? And then what about you? I know probably books are not as easy everywhere to get here, but do you try to read? Do you try to make that important? And do we show children that it's important? Books are precious. God's word, the Bible, is precious, right? And then we're going to model just how I don't know so much here, but the cell phone is becoming such a big distraction. Is that for you too? Yes. Everybody wants to be staring down. I tell the children, look up. Stop looking down. You're missing everything all around you. And we're missing our relationship, our time, like Ken said this morning, family, like our time together as brothers and sisters, because we're staring at a phone. And that is not real life. And a lot of times we are losing our focus and our attention. Okay, go ahead, Dorcas. I think the goal for, did you turn it? This is for the readers, for your children, for the students. To read and reread God's word, allowing it to sink deeply and to transform. I think that is one of the most important parts of why I care about reading. is so that you can read God's word. And then to be able to read with automaticity, that means read without even thinking about it anymore. You know how you tie your shoe? It was hard at first, but now you just tie your shoe and it's no big deal to even think about it. Or how to get somewhere. You do it automatically because you've learned the way. And so I want them to read like that. And then to be lifelong learners and be able to read and learn anything. If they want to learn about a science issue, they will read it. If they want to learn about poetry or their country, they can read about it. And enjoy the beauty of language, of rich literature in the curriculums, depending on what curriculum you use, and if you have books to go with your curriculum. We want them to just fall in love with reading the book, right? And then we're going to cultivate virtue and empathy. When you read God's word, or you read a novel, or you read a book, children are learning to have empathy, meaning to care for others, and to care about the character in the book because maybe they have a sad story. This morning when Kim was talking to us, that was a sad story. But it ended happy, right? We're always God's family. But then we want them also to have virtue, to have hope and love, and to have fortitude, strength, and temperance, self-control, because they read about these people in books, and they read stories. And then to have a reading life, that they choose reading over staring at their phone or other things. They will want to pick up a book. That's our hope for our students. Okay, you can search this out. And it's classical. We're going to talk about We're going to go, after I talk about classical, we're going to skip. So it's systematic, and it's classical in nature, and it's best for children to learn how to read what we're talking about. So phonics, decoding, phonological awareness, not the memorize and hope they get it. And I think that's been a system used all over the world, even in the United States. They just give words, hopefully you memorized them, but then when you see it, you might know it somewhere else, but then you don't know how to break down a word you've never seen before. So that's why it's so important. Learn how to read. Learning how to read leads to reading for knowledge. So we got to learn how to read first. Then you read for knowledge. And as we move through the stages, if we go from grammar school, the littles, if they haven't learned to read, so then they go to the older grades, they're going to struggle. We don't want them to struggle there. We want them to learn more and higher and bigger because they learned to read when they were little, when they were young. So what we do is so important. How many of you work with the littlest? There you go. So it's very important what we're doing in grammar school, the early learning. Because who works in the middle grades? Middle grades and then upper grades? Yeah, we're delivering them to you. Wouldn't you like it if they knew how to read when they got there? Yes. Okay, we can turn. We're going to learn all these words. Phonological awareness, phoneme awareness. This one is so hard. You know how you memorize the words, like the ones you see all the time? The and them and their. We call that sight words because we see them all the time. We just need to memorize them. But there is really actually something happening in your brain that you're able to store words and retrieve them quickly. It's fascinating. Phonograms. I'm going to bring some of these things to show you tomorrow. Some actually hands-on things. Okay, we can turn. But our goal down here, although someone's head was blocking, was comprehension. Comprehension. Reading affects all subjects. I've already said that. What I'm going to talk about the brain is nothing new. 1970s, 1980s, the 1990s, early 2000, all of these scientists, these educators that studied the brain and how children learn, they knew all this information. And it was tucked away in very elevated journals, right? Just for certain people to read. Teachers were not told this information. I went to teacher college. No one told me this. I had to learn it. So it's been a journey for me for 20 years. But every time I look at something, like the Scarborough's reading rope that I gave you, one of your handouts, that was in 2002. It's not new information. So what I'm telling you is going to be exciting. I get excited about it. I hope you get excited about it too. But it's so complex. we just take it for granted that you're going to put something in front of someone and you're just going to learn it. But what has to happen even from your eye, there's something in your eye called the phobia, has to see the letter, has to go in your brain has to know that sound, and then you have to put it all together in phonics. Whew. And then you have to, is God not amazing? When you look at how He designed us, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. All you have to do is look at how we learn. He made us wonderful. And so we're going to talk about simple video reading, but we can move on because I'm going to go straight to that, Dorcas. So I like to start with, God did not create the world with written word. What did we have? And you have a very strong culture of this, oral language. We tell stories. Nobody has to learn how to do that. Did you have to learn to say some words and no? You listen to each other, you hear the words, babies hear them, they repeat them. And then stories from generations and generations and generations. God's word was taken out by the word. You just spoke it, right? God spoke the word. He is the word. So words are so beautiful and important. But it was oral. And we did not even have writing systems for the longest time. So our brain had to adjust from only hearing words in our ears to now we got to look down and actually read that. So our brain changed. God is amazing that He can do anything in our bodies. Okay, we can turn. Wish I had a clicker. So we had writing systems. I love history. So we know that it happened for the Hebrew Bible. We know the Sumerians. We know hieroglyphics came in Egypt, right? All of a sudden there were these little pictographs, drawings, and people knew that that drawing was a word. And then you were really making sentences even with pictures. And then all of a sudden, you can turn it, is now we have an alphabet. Now we have A and B and C. And people like Socrates are like, whoa, wait a minute. This is going to mess up with our memory because everything with Socrates' time, they were just memorizing and repeating it, and their brain can hold so much information. Think about it. Now that we have cell phones, how many phone numbers do you know? I used to know a ton of phone numbers, and now I don't have them memorized, even my own children's. I'm like, thanks, Mom. I don't even know my number. I said, well, I just push a button. Push a button. So our brains are getting lazy because we're not holding on to this information. So I'm going to talk about the brain for a minute. It's so exciting. Okay, you can turn it. That's your brain. That's our children's brain. Every part of your brain is involved in reading. Every single part, every lobe of your brain. And now, this part is all about in the frontal lobe. This is the part right here. It's the part for organization, and you're learning, that's the part that does pronunciation, articulation. Language comes out of this temporal lobe. All our phoneme goes right here. Do you see all that? Isn't that fascinating? That every part of your brain is working to be a reader.
Yeah.
So that's why when I say it is complex and mysterious, really, the way God designed it, it's beautiful. But because now we have scientists, neuroscientists, my brother-in-law's a neuroscientist, and he scans brains. And parts of your brain fire, it lights up when something's happening. And we can go to the next slide. So that's why we know this is a typical reading brain. Your language, your speech, can y'all see that? It's a little fuzzy. So a typical reader, do you see the yellow? They can see now on a scan that when you're reading, it is just firing, firing, firing. But someone who maybe is dyslexic or is struggling with reading, those same parts aren't firing. But we know with good intervention and help, they can read. But we have to do it early. You can't wait and see by grade 3 or grade 4. You have to do it when they're 5. And you can tell if they're going to struggle, even at 5. There's ways to know. So, fascinating, right? This brain is doing all of this. And there's great books if you can get access to them to learn. I really like her a lot. She loves the Lord. And she's written this book all about the history of reading. This is my favorite. If you could get your hand on one book, it would be this one. Proust and the Squid. It's a very funny name. Proust because of a French novelist, Marcel Proust, and he wrote how reading was beautiful, and the squid was the first creature that they started learning about the brain. So she put that together in a fun title. I have all this at the end too. So, we call this the simple view of reading. Sounds funny, we just talked about how complex it is, now I'm going to say simple. But truly, reading comes down to word recognition. It's a math problem. So what is 1 times 1 equal? So what if they aren't good at word recognition, and this is a 0? 0 times 1 is 0. What if they have this one? 1 times 0, 0. They have to have both of these. They have to be able to recognize words. They have to be able to decode them, sound them out, put them together, hear those phonemes. A phoneme is an individual sound. Like if I say the word, give me a word, a short word.
Hat.
What did you say?
Hat.
Hat?
Hat.
I love those hats.
Hat.
What?
Hat.
Oh.
Hat.
What? How about if I say hat? Hat. Hat. The H, the A, and the T are all a phoneme. But if I say the word boy, look is a phoneme, boy is a phoneme. So all of that has to be something they can identify. And then language comprehension, it's powerful. It's so powerful. But all of this has to happen from birth and then move forward. So let's go to the next slide because I'm going to break it down. So word recognition is you're able to cipher the knowledge abilities needed to code, right? I said that. The letter sound skills, word specific, phoneme, what I just did with hat and boy. And language is based on vocabulary and knowledge of grammar. There's so much inferencing when you're reading. You have to fill in the gaps. Maybe the author doesn't say every single thing and you're like, what is he meaning by that? So your brain is having to fill in meaning. So attention is critical. Oh, back one more time, just. That's okay. You went a little, Dorcas, I'm going, there we go. So attention is critical. That's why when I say we're losing our attention, if you're not attending to what you're learning or reading, reading is going to be hard for you, right? So you can go now, Dorcas. I gave you this picture because it's something that makes so much sense to me. When we talk about, remember this part is 1 times this part gives us a skilled reader. So that's why it's called the simple view of reading, even though it's not simple. So in order to be able to do these things well, yours isn't in color, I'm sorry about that, but those are all the pieces to it. We have to have logical awareness, we have to be able to decode, we've got to recognize words quickly and access out of our brains quickly so that every time we see them, we know it. Children that know words and see them quickly, they read faster. And then all of this, like I was talking about, talk about things before you even read it. What if the book is about farming? Then talk about farming, talk about tools, talk about what grows in the farm. Give them all the words they would need. And that's vocabulary. And then, sorry, I'm going to keep away. So verbal reasoning and literacy knowledge. We have all kinds of books. We have the Holy Bible, we have poetry, we have literature, we have science texts. Everything requires all of this to read. Think about some of the material they might have to learn. It's very difficult if the vocabulary is hard. So even at my school, we teach the math vocabulary before we read. Teach them the words and what they mean. Teach them the words of science. Teach them the words of everything. But I love this picture because all of these are important. But if one strand is loose, maybe they're not a good decoder. Maybe they're not good at understanding vocabulary. Words are hard for them. Then they're not going to be, it's a rope. I love that picture. You know how every strand in a rope is super tight and it's strong? So I'm visual. I like to see that. When my children are going to be strong readers, it's tight. Every strand is important to being a skilled reader. So you can study more, and we'll talk more and more about this too. Okay, Dorcas. So it's what I said earlier, it's systematic. You have to go step by step. And that's why the babies in the preschool, what do you call it? You call it the nursery. You call it nursery. Singing, saying things and chanting and singing. In the United States, we have nursery rhymes. It's like hickory, dickory, dock. The mouse ran up the clock. Dock, clock. But there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to reading. There's a rhythm to sounds that babies need in their head. And so the more we sing to them and talk to them and they watch our mouth make words, there's so much about your mouth. The way you make TH or where your teeth go, your tongue. It's fascinating. I think during COVID when everybody had a mask on, nobody saw the mouth and the babies weren't seeing the mouths. We started seeing children maybe have a little bit of speech issues or struggling because they haven't seen the mouth. So when you're teaching, make sure you're always, I make them do this, I go like this, and then I might say hot, because you gotta watch the mouth. And when you're teaching phonics, there's no up, it's just ah, and I flow it. I don't let them go ah, that's chopping. So you flow it, you go hot, hot, and say it fast, hot, right? Let's do hot. Hot. Say it fast. Yeah. So it's systematic. We start from what's easy. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that word right there. Whose head is that right there? Whose head is this? There you go. Oh yeah. Can y'all even see that? I hope so. You know, when I was showing you the brain where the students struggled, do you know that 95% of children should be able to read? 95. Every bit of research in neuroscience about the brain and reading, 95. There are always going to be a certain amount that will struggle. But everybody else should be able to read. I'm sorry, now she's like, I gotta lay down like this. You don't have to do it. So really what's happening here, you've got to start moving up systematically with what they know, what's easier, to what's difficult. Sometimes people go, it's the same way with math or anything else. We start with this abstract, complex. We gotta break it down. We gotta start from the beginning and build and build and build. That's why with the babies, nursery rhymes, talking to them, telling them stories, to rhyme words. Hat back, run fun. The more they can do those kinds of things, the stronger they'll be as a leader, okay? So it's very systematic. It's very explicit. We start from the easiest to the hardest, and it's very much, we gotta start here. We gotta start with the letter sounds. Then we're gonna blend them. Then it's gonna get complex. And get them strong when they're little. And that's why when I said 95% of children should be able to read, so that if you have a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old and you notice they cannot rhyme words, like if you say, what rhymes with sun? And they can't, then work on it. Sun, fun, sun, run. And it's so hard because rhyming words is the end, right? It's not the beginning, so it's very tricky in your mind to go, well, no, that doesn't rhyme, because the first sound is different. But it does rhyme. Yeah. So if you notice they can't rhyme, or they can't do simple things like if I take sun and I take away s, what is it? What's left? Sun. What if I say sun and I take away s and put, what is it? Fun. It's all auditory. You have to start auditorily, nothing written. That's just words coming from me to you, right? Words from you, from your students to you. Then it moves into the written. But you have to start at the very bottom with the letter sound coming together. Then you will look at it. Ah, I see hot on the board. I'm going to go like this. Hot, hot. Say it fast, hot. But it's breaking it down. Tomorrow I'm bringing a letter chart with the alphabet and just playing with the alphabet and what sound does this make? What sound? You hold up A, it's ah. Say, there's 3 sounds for A. A-O. Like father. When does it make those sounds? reading is complex. When do you use T-I-O-N or S-I-O-N at the end of a word? It's really complex. Okay, you can go. And you can't even read this because of this screen, but there is something called Charles stages of reading development. You really are not an expert reader till you're about 16 years old. And everybody thinks, I'm just going to teach the babies to read. I'm just going to teach the 5-year-olds or the 7-year-olds. But we are continually learning to read and comprehend for a long time. And so I talk about this a lot in the United States because reading stops when they get to about grade 2 or grade 3. But they're not finished. It's broken that we've decided that they've stopped, they've become an expert reader all of a sudden and they're in grade 3. And they're not. Think about the vocabulary the older you get and the subject matter. I was talking to Dorcas, she's learning economics in college. I'm sure the vocabulary is immense. Like, whoa. But if you learn phonetically and you learn that explicit way of phonics like I was telling you about, you can break down any word and read it. And multi-syllabic words, words with many syllables. Because that's the tool we want to give these children. That's the tool to be a lifelong learner, is to be able to read. So, sadly, I could probably email this to people, but you really have to keep teaching reading. It has to keep going and going and going. Okay, next slide. Where's the next slide? Oh, so we have the emergent reader. It's in stages, so you can flip it, Dorcas. So the emergent pre-reader sits on the laps, laps, samples and learns from a full range of multiple sounds, right? Lap reading. It's hard when it's busy and you don't have time, but if you can put your baby on your lap and have a small book and read to them, it's the start of being a reader. So the talking, the answering the why, singing with them, chanting with them, like you said, and rhyming with them, and telling them poems or stories, and then they go into sitting with you on your lap and hearing the story. And then we get the novice reader. It gets increasingly more complex, right? And the more sounds and the more they have in their language, you can keep going, Dorcas. And then you've got the decoding reader. This is starting at 5, really, when you get to decoding. 5 and 6, 7. I don't know where it is here, but at my school, they start learning to decode at 5 years old. 5 and 6. Because we've done all the pre-work. Read to them. We did all the auditory of the rhyming, all of that. Then they're listening to story. They're telling you what they heard. Tell me what just happened in this book. What happened to the mama? What happened to the baby? What happened? And they're telling you back what they heard. And then you get down to where you're actually seeing the letters and putting all those sounds together to blend to make a word. We're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. Okay, and then the next reader, this is our hope, that they're fluent. Fluency is, the way I like to describe fluency, you're reading as if you're speaking to a friend. Does that make sense? Not even when a reader, comprehends the facts. Fluent. But they won't be a fluent reader if we don't build those phonics muscles and help them get so strong and confident. So we want them to be fluent, and we want them to comprehend what they read. I sometimes, even if I'm reading a hard book, I have to stop and work on vocabulary. Maybe it's too big of a word for me. I think reading can be really hard. We have to teach them, it's okay, stop and figure out what the meaning of this word is. Put it in the context of the paragraph or the story so that you'll understand it. And it's very challenging because many words have multiple meanings. Like the word dish in America. So I was reading a story with the children, and I realized I'm reading the word dish. If one group thought it was one thing and another group thought it was another thing, they'd have totally different understandings. In the story, it wasn't talking about a plate. It was talking about words and what does it mean in that paragraph. And that's the tricky thing, words have so many meanings, multiple. So this is really important that we get them there. And then we really want everybody to get there. Isn't that a dream come true that everyone would be an expert reader? It could change the world. Even in the United States, by grade 4, we have students who are not reading on level. We are not. There are many in schools like mine who are working so hard to make reading important so that they are reading and they progress and they become this expert reader who can learn anything and can go out and change the world. Literally. I mean, I think readers are leaders and can do anything. Readers do well on tests. They do well when they have to learn something new. If someone says, hey, you're going to come work for me, but I need you to read this thing and learn it. Oh. And you read it and you learn it. And so that's why getting them here is critical. So I hope you come back tomorrow. We're really going to break down phonological awareness. We're going to break down phonics. We're going to break down all aspects of this. So I wanted to make sure I stopped long enough to see if anyone had any questions or wanted me to repeat anything or go back to a slide. It's a very short class with very rich material. And that's why I wanted to leave you with Scarborough's reading rope so that you know all the important parts of reading. And this right here is written by a woman named Louisa Moats, and she's one of the very first in America who started this knowledge of reading instruction, giving it to the teachers. She was so aware that why are the teachers not given this information? Why is the information hidden away somewhere? Share it with the teachers. So I spend a lot of my time sharing this with the teachers. I wanted you to have something to keep with you to read. And if you read it tonight and you have a question tomorrow, I'd love to answer it because I can talk about this all day.
Can we have the slide sent to us because it's really too fast?
I know. Yes. I think we can ask Rafiki about that. To see the slides. Would you like to see the slides? Is that what you're saying? Is there one thing I can go back to? It's a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a lot. But I wanted to prime you to make you so inspired that you can learn more about how this works. And that you can look at your students and your children and look at them and know there is so much happening in your brain. You're learning to read and it is hard, hard work. But we have to be good teachers to teach them. And so all of that was just big ideas. I'm going to bring it together slower tomorrow. She's like, that was too fast. But this is thousands and thousands of hours of information. I'm trying to put it in a little bit of a nutshell for you. But really, if you walk away from here, that all children can read, if we do it systematically and explicitly, and we teach phonics, not whole language, not memorization, phonics. Hearing the sounds, blending the sounds to make words. Then words make sentences, and then sentences make paragraphs, and then they read a book. So walk away from that knowing that there is much happening in your students. And we have to educate ourselves as teachers. We have to know how it works so that we can teach them very young to be a reader. Just from the time they're babies. So important. All the way to when they leave us to go to university. It takes time. What other question besides it's too much? Slow down.
How can you believe that the child is dyslexic?
Pardon me?
How early do you know that the child has dyslexia?
You can tell when they're 4 and 5. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, but I don't mind telling you a little bit now. There are 2 things that show us that a child is going to be dyslexic. One is the phonological awareness that I talked about. They can't rhyme. They can't if you say, what's the first sound you hear in sun? And they can't figure out that it's at the beginning sun. Or what do you hear at the end of the word dog? It's good. They can't do that. Or they can't break apart words or the syllables of words. They break apart biscuit. Biscuit. It has 2 syllables. Biscuit. They struggle with that. And you can tell that at 4 and 5. And I have a resource that I could share with you. You can even ask the children the questions. The other is called rapid automated naming, RAN. It's being able to, let's say you go to the market and you see the fruits. What are your fruits? You have mango, banana, orange, pineapples. So you go to the market and you talk about the fruits. And then you go back home. You say, what fruits did you see in the market? What fruits? If they have a hard time with rapid naming and holding that information, they'll say, you're on a lot. Bananas. But somebody that can rapid name will say, I saw mango, pineapple, banana. So even if you see a line of colors, what colors did you see? Oh, I saw, it's being able to process that information in your brain. But both of those can be corrected at 4 and 5 years old. So we're learning so much about dyslexia that early intervention takes them on the path of reading. And that 95% can read. That is huge, isn't it? But we have waited and said, oh, I hope they can read later. And we didn't intervene at 5 and 6 years old. So that was a very good question. What about another one? Any other questions?
Affecting them before they can listen to your own language, the English, before, so that they can discard that one from home. That's the problem. So how do we then manage such time?
Because you're multilingual, right? I mean, in the States, they might have one other language. One. But you're multilingual. They're all, think of all the sounds they're hearing in their brains. And the way it sounds is not the same.
Yes.
So I would, and in that book, First in the Squid, she talks about that a little bit, that I think once you come in, what do you do when they come in? Do you only speak in English, or do you speak in their native tongue? Good question, right? You may have 3 or 4 languages, 3 or 4 in one class, or 5.
So it depends on the class. For instance, if let's assume we have K1, that's first graders coming in 3 years, 2, 3 years. For them to get used to the English, like sometimes it takes 2, 3 months,
I believe it.
5 months.
It's okay.
And some you discover that they spend the whole of that day following you. They are unable to even listen to get what they say, either and even to identify with us.
And that's why you're gonna have to be really patient, and maybe it's not gonna happen at 5. Maybe it's not gonna happen at 7. They're gonna spend a whole year. Remember what I talked about, the auditory?
Yes.
And that's why watching your mouth is gonna be really important, that when you're talking to them, they're watching me. They're watching me. Cat. Cat. Hot. Cat. They're watching your mouth. So that may just be, you spend so much time auditorily and so much time saying the words, they repeat the words back, and you say it again and again and again and again. That young children are phenomenal. How they could do that. So you're just gonna have to be more patient. And that's hard because you're dealing with so many languages in one space. But the more they hear it, the more they're going to get it. And then then you can move, maybe your next grades have to be the decoding. Where the decoding comes more after they hear all those individual sounds. The English language is complicated.
Yeah.
And there's rules and all the things. And when you use I-R, E-R, U-R, they all say It's super complicated. So I'm completely impressed with how you learn. I spoke English from birth. And so That was not hard for me. And it's amazing how your brains and your children's brains can grasp all of this language and learn to read. They're going to do it. Okay, and we'll talk more, we'll get more in depth tomorrow. And I'm always available for questions.
Sorry, I would like to maintain this group or somehow some may infiltrate this group tomorrow.
Yes!
Now, how do we handle that?
Dorcas, can they all be in my group 2 first session?
Yeah, because to get the best of this, we need to continue tomorrow. Now, if we have newcomers here, it's going to be a problem. How are we going to handle that?
So when you come, listen, here's what we'll do. Tomorrow, the first session, I will tell the person at the door, and Dorcas, you can help me with this, that only people that came first session yesterday are entered. Because you took every chair, so it should be the same.
Yes.
Unless you don't want to come. It's up to you. But Dorcas, can you help me remember that? If you were in session 1 today, and I'll do that with all 3 sessions, that was, thank you. Good idea. I need all the good ideas I can get. And I want you to be encouraged. I want you to leave encouraged, not thinking, wow, this is too much. God will break it down and we will take all this information tomorrow. Okay? All right. God bless you.